Two kids were just playing in their living room until they accidentally opened a secret passage behind a bookshelf. What they found inside? A fresh banana, a Halloween candy wrapper, and evidence someone might be living in their house without them knowing. Stay till the end, because what the police uncovered will haunt you. But before we start our story, smash the like button. Make sure to subscribe and hit the notifications bell so you won't miss any new stories. When a new family moved to their new house, all they could think about how lucky they were. It was the perfect home. Large rooms, well-furnished kitchen. Each one of kids would have their own room. The new homeowners thought they hit the jackpot. It was a nice change of pace. Those were the happy days. Unfortunately, they didn't last long. One day, the parents needed to run some errands. Should the kids come to, they wondered. After a quick glance at the living room, they saw both their teenagers immersed in their games. Let them have fun together, the parents concluded. They promptly put on coats and closed the door behind them. They wouldn't have guessed that among all the emotions their kids would feel that day, fun wouldn't be one of them. As soon the door shut behind the parents, the teenagers went wild. They ran around the living room. They tugged at each other's shirts. They played games together. It was all fun until one of the siblings pushed the other in his back. As the teenager pushed his sibling, Tom grabbed the first thing his hands touched. It was the shelves on the living room bookcase. Both the siblings gasped. That bookcase was one of the greatest assets off the living room. The family members cherished it and the books it was holding. It also looked quite fancy and brought the room together in the ruin it. Ruining it would actually have been 1,000 times better than what happened next. The teenager's heart leaped. Did he harm his brother? He quickly sighed a sigh of relief. Thankfully, his sibling was hanging on to one of the shelves of the bookcase. It was fixed to the wall, so that should stop his fall. Except something unexpected happened. The siblings let out a scream of terror as the bookcase started moving towards them. Did the shock unhinge its screws? The bookcase looked like it was falling towards them. The teens were bewildered at what they were witnessing. The bookcase wasn't falling on them. It was splitting in half. Did we break it? They asked each other with eyes wide open. They quickly got the answer to their question. The bookcase was still in place. Even the books didn't budge from their position. However, the empty space behind the bookcase revealed something highly disturbing. There was no wall, only an empty, dark space instead. The teenagers stood there in silence. What does this mean? They looked at each other in bewilderment. It was so dark they couldn't discern what was hidden inside. But being teenagers, there was only one thing for it. They knew what they had to do. The teenagers were curious by nature. Who would say no to a little indoor adventure? They were growing more excited by the second. What would they find down in the dark? The oldest ran to his room. He came back with a flashlight and took the first step inside. But his little brother wouldn't budge. The younger brother was staying behind, but after gathering some courage, he joined his sibling. One step inside and they knew something was definitely off. They swept the flashlight in all directions. At first glance, it seemed like a tiny little room with naked walls. 2 steps inside and they knew it was no ordinary room. They spotted a staircase going down the room, a narrow spiral staircase they'd never seen before. Where would it lead? The excitement was fading away. The brothers never knew about the staircase. Were their parents aware of its existence? Where did it go? Despite their fears, curiosity got the best of them. They slowly marched down the stairs. After a few steps, they brandished their flashlight ahead and gasped. They found themselves in a small, messy room with no windows, no door, and no light. The flashlight illuminated something on the floor that made their hearts race. Little did they know their adventure was just beginning. In the middle of the room was an old-looking wooden box. The teenagers had never seen this box before. What could be inside? Did they dare open it? To their dismay, it was locked with a heavy padlock. A few swings with the flashlight beam revealed a mattress in the corner, and what they were looking for, a key. But the other items that had been untightly tossed beside it on the mattress made them take a double take. On top of the old mattress, some garbage was scattered here and there, and some small objects lay on the floor that they were too afraid to touch. Then the siblings' little quest took a dark turn. The most soundable decision would be to go back home and call their parents. Their parents wouldn't even believe them. The brothers knew that conversation would sound like a prank and nothing more. One of them spotted a detail that would soon stop them in their tracks and speed up their decision. The younger brother stopped talking. He just pointed at something at the mattress. The teenager couldn't see what he was referring to. A banana? A fresh banana? It couldn't be there for more than a couple of hours. That meant that whoever was eating that banana left the room in less than that time, and they might even be in the room at that exact moment. Feeling chills running down their backs, they looked at each other in panic. What was next to the banana was even more disturbing. Next to the banana, the flashlight reflected on some crumpled colored paper. They took a closer look. The pair's skin crawled. They couldn't believe their eyes. It was a candy wrapper. A candy wrapper from the Halloween batch the kids had a few weeks ago. How did it get there? No one from the family ever went into that room. Whoever brought the candy there must have gone to their room, rummaged through their stuff, taken it, then gone back to this room without being noticed. They had to tell their parents. The siblings ran upstairs in a frenzy, stumbling on a few stairs. The older brother picked up the phone with the trembling hand and called the parents. With a hushed voice, he explained what had happened. The parents couldn't believe what they heard. They didn't know that was waiting for them at home was even more incredible. The parents came home and found the two teenagers restlessly facing down the living room. A quick glance over the bookcase and they understood the kids weren't lying. They ventured inside the dark space down the staircase and into the room. They were stunned as the first wave of shock passed. They started noticing some details around the room, like those dolls, creepy old dolls. There were more and more of them as they looked around, and many more surprises were waiting for them. They knew that this was hard to believe, and they didn't know what to do. The first reflex they had was to pull out their phones and snap pics of everything they saw so far, and it wasn't pretty. They start snapping first the matters, then the key and the box that had presumably unlocked. No one had seen it before. Finally, they found a mini sculpture of an elephant. They go back up the stairs and all sit in the living room silently. What should they do? Was someone living under their roof all this time without them noticing? The couple started discussing their options. They were still shocked, however, they knew they needed help to figure it out, so they took it to the internet, and the responses they got were quite unexpected. They decided to post their pictures on a website. The responses explode. The phone was shining with those injured notifications. People were intrigued, horrified, and hooked on the story. The post went viral, but people started growing suspicious. Not everybody was on board on that story. Many comments were condemning the pictures. Some said the pictures were fake. Some others said they were posted only to gather internet karma. But other internet users had another concern in mind. People were concerned. How come there was a person, or possibly more, roaming around the house with no one noticing them? What if they were dangerous? And more importantly, people were asking themselves, what if there was a person hiding in my home as well? But there was another question on everybody's lips. What about the box? What was inside? Unfortunately, we'll never know. But what we do know is that whatever it was, it unsettled the family so much that they called the police. The original photos have since been deleted off the internet, and the account's been closed, but there was one update before the poster disappeared without a trace. I left to go to a friend's house. Well, the police investigated my house. They found nobody there to bite. Brownie wrote to the newspaper. They've told us that the person was only living there temporarily, which doesn't make that much sense to me, but apparently he would come in for periods of time, then leave for a while. There were no other entrances to the secret passage, therefore the person would have been using my parents' bedroom to access the secret passage. The walls are incredible soundproof, which is probably how we didn't even notice him. We were cleared to move back in today, and obviously we're not staying just as a precaution, he added. My parents said that I was never allowed back in there again, and believe me, I tried. They actually went inside and boarded the whole place up. What would you do if you discovered something like this in your house?